Hi, it's Tracey Campbell here today for Confessions of a Paper Addict design team. I'm going to be playing with the April cut file called Spring Growth and also an older cut file of Sunflower. So as you can see, I've cut the Spring Growth cut file in quite a large size and two of the sunflowers, but I only end up using one of the sunflowers. I'm going to be using these cut files with some photos of my new garden in our new home and some flowers that I've taken photos of. So it's really appropriate and quite lovely how it turns out. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to back my cut file using some different pattern papers in quite a few different ranges. I've just gone through my stash, pulled out colours that I thought would look great. For the roses on the Spring Growth, I wanted different colours on the roses, so pinks and whites and a little bit of red. I think there's even a little bit of blue. So I have used one of the Cocoa Vanilla papers, and I'm just tracing the inside of the cut file. And when I cut it out, I cut out a little bit of about a millimetre or 2 millimetres on the outside of my pencil line. Now I do this so it does give me a little bit of lip to put some adhesive on so that it does stick to the cut file. I have cut the cut file in just a white cardstock and it is quite durable and flexible. The cut files are really well detailed and well put together and designed by Virginia, that they are really spectacular, so easy to use and easy to work with. Everything lines up, it all matches, it looks fantastic when you do get them backed, or they look fantastic as a standalone, as a decorative piece without all the backing too behind your photos as a background. I'm just using a white glue pen that dries clear and putting on the cutout. You might notice when I am cutting out a few backings for the cut file, I put a little bit of a mark on the cut file as well as the backing of the pattern paper. This is so I can remember which flower or which piece goes to which flower. Just I put like a dot or 2 stripes or 3 stripes or a dot and a dash if I'm doing quite a few, a different pattern. And then sometimes even if I'm doing really intricate ones, I number them. So 1 and 1, 1, 2 and 2 and that type of thing. Now I did just trim a little bit of the excess off. I usually don't have to trim much at all, but sometimes I overemphasize where I have drawn the paper, or drawn on the paper, and I add a little bit of extra onto the outline when I am cutting out. But it's so easy to rectify. You just trim a little bit off, and with the double layer, if you line up your scissors right along the edge of the white cut file, it's actually quite easy just to trim back so you can't see them. Just going through, making all the roses at the same time and all the buds of the roses at the same time, so they all kind of blend together and play nicely together, I guess. Now I'm just trying to work out if in some of the smaller leaf clusters, if it's actually a bud or a leaf. And I actually think it's open to interpretation. I like the thought of having a tiny little bud with 2 leaves on either side. So on the left side of the rose Spring Growth and the right side, there's a little cluster and I've turned them into a bud and 2 leaves, sorry. So I was just trying to work out then if I was going to make it a bud or actually leave it as a leaf. So I guess that depends on you. If you like lots of foliage, turn it green like a leaf. If you like a little bit more colour, turn it into a bud. And as you can see, then they're little buds now. Trim off the excess. Right, so now I need to decide on what I'm going to do the pot. So I do have a bit of dark colour, purpley colour in my photo. So I've decided to go with the darky purple blue colours. Just so I can tie in the photos to my cut files and just cutting out the big pot there, and I've gone with a little bit of a blue stripe with a couple of little tiny baby hearts on it. And now you saw the photos there, so I was kind of trying to match some of the orangey red from the flowers in the photo to what orangey red I was going to do for the flowers around on the second pot and in the second vase with a handle. And I've gone with this orange colour and working out if it's the exact colour I want, or what I actually do is decide that I want the centre of the flowers to stand out, and because I'm going to back the whole lot of the flower, I'm going to have to do my centres now before I do that. So I'm just cutting out 4 little orange bits for the centre of the flowers, and all the 4 flowers on the vase will have the same centre. I've gone with an orangey yellow to represent some pollen colour, and now I'm choosing a purple colour, a light purple, to go for the other 3 flowers. And as you can see there, I'm numbering the flowers 1, 2 and 3, so when I do go to cut them out, I've got them all there and I know which ones go where. So that's, once again, I number on the paper I'm backing out, the paper I'm cutting out, and the position on the flower. So I write on the back side of the die cut the tiny little 1, 2 or 3, or I put a pattern, a dot and a dash and 2 lines and things. Just cutting them out. Right, and here I go, sticking centres first. I found using a blade with a little bit of the glue on it helps me pick up these fine little detail pieces, and I can manipulate them around a little bit more than my big clumsy fingers. So that's what I was doing with the blade there, just picking them up and popping them in the centre. On goes the orangey red flower, and now for the purple ones. And I found, numbering them makes it so much easier to work out which shape goes where. And just giving a bit of a dry or a wipe down from the excess glue with a damp baby wipe. I actually don't use a really damp one straight out. It's too wet. I just use, I take it out before I start doing, so it's a little bit dry by the time I get around to using it. Right, pot number 2. So I want it to be white, and I'm actually going to do pot 2 and the vase the same solid colours. So I am using a another cocoa vanilla paper, and this is with the bigger spots and polka dots on it. So it's quite nice. All the colours that are in the paper on the polka dots actually tie in with the colours on my photos and in the flowers that I'm backing. I've gone ahead and done the handle on the vase a yellow colour, and now I will put the polka dots in and just making sure I've got the right spot and positioning. I thought I had missed a bit where the handle goes against the pot, but when I turned it over and I saw the colour, I did realise that it was the edge of the vase and the handle, so it was definitely a gap there, which is good and it looks good, and you'll be able to see the pattern paper through that. So once it's backed onto the pattern paper, it will look more complete. You'll be able to see that you're seeing straight through. And going back and just having a look, I realised that I missed a little bit in the vase, where the gaps between the flowers, you can see the vase through it. So I'm just going through now and cutting out pieces and making sure I line up my stripes horizontally, because When I first twisted it and put the paper in, they were very difficult, and you could tell the difference, so I had to make sure I lined them up horizontally. So tip bit, don't use lined paper, but if you do, back the whole thing over the top of the once you've done the flowers in a big solid piece. Makes it a little bit easier. Right, so now I'm thinking, what can I do? I didn't really want to go an earthy tone, a brown or anything for the soil that were in the top of the pots. So I've kind of left that for a bit of a thought process later on, and have gone and picked a green colour to use for the stem. Now I thought I had picked two distinct greens when I had them side by side, but after I've cut them out and backed them, they're very similar. So I've got the green stem, the green for the stems, and then green for the leaves. But once they were together, they looked very similar. But you know what? I still like it, so it's all good. And so this was a little bit of a fiddly process, but as you can see, just lining them up and sticking them down, making sure I get everything done. And here is the soil insert, so but it's not in soil, I've made it blue colour. I didn't want to add an earthy tone to my cut file at this stage because I am going to back the photo and the die cut onto a wood grain, so it was the earth colour in my layout and I didn't want any in the cut file. And here I am just doing some of the leaves, and I'm going to go ahead and just cut them all out. And this is the time where I was numbering everything, so you can see, and sticking it down with glue, so it made it easier for where I was working around with those numbers on my cutouts. And once again, back to the Stanley blade for the little fiddly bits, just easy to pick up. I am going to edit this out so you don't watch me do all the foliage. It will come up in very shortly, but as you can see, it did take a considerable amount of time to do it because there are quite a few leaves there, but it's such a relaxing process, the tracing, the drawing, the cutting and the gluing. And I tend to do mine in bits and pieces, so I'll work away, get one section done and then disappear and do a bit of housework, you know, put a load of washing on, just so it doesn't look like I've been sitting scrapbooking all day. Not that there's anything wrong with that, mind you. And I do find it relaxing. I wish I was one of these people that could do this in front of the TV, because I think I'd enjoy watching TV, but I'd get distracted by the scrapbooking and I'd have to keep rewatching what I was trying to watch on TV. So a bit of music in the background, all the kids chattering away sometimes. Okay, on to the smaller pot. So in the photo that you see, this little pot actually looks like it's attached in the cut file, but when I cut it out it was separate. So that's actually really handy because you can use it to move it around on your page when you're sticking it down to get what you're looking for, or you can use it over the top so you have them joint as well. And I actually, when I do go ahead and adhere it to my page, I use a bit of double-sided sticky tape to make it stand up a little bit more, to give it a bit of dimension and height to the layout. So it's very flexible, this die cut, or cut file, sorry. So just trimming and doing the leaves again. And I've decided to do the flower, this one, the same colour as I did for the reddy orange flower on the vase side. So just to get a bit of balance to the layout when I put it all together. And then the earth in this one, or the top of the pot, I've actually matched to the flowers on the vase as well. Right, so by now I've decided I'm only going to do one sunflower. I did have a bit of a play with organisation of 2 sunflowers and the spring growth cut file. However, I couldn't get it to quite work out and balance well on the page, and having the 2 sunflowers was just a bit too much. So I've decided just to go with one. I must admit this sunflower is one of my favourite die cuts. It's very simple, but it's so effective. It looks lovely when it's down on your page. I don't know. Sunflowers are a favourite flower of mine. They're just so sunshiny and happiness and all things cheery, and I think of sunflowers. So. I did try to go with doing it a darker colour originally, but I must admit, I do really enjoy sunflowers being a yellow colour. So I was trying to, shake it up a bit and have a bit of extra colour there, but I did have to end up going with the yellow, with a darker yellow-orange centre. I did think about the black centre, but it didn't balance. It didn't look well with the spray growth because there was no darkness except for the deep purpley around the top of the pots. So orange it had to be. Yeah, just popping on some glue, sticking the colour down. Get rid of the excess glue. And there we are. So here is the wood grain, and I have printed out the photos twice in a photo strip. Decide that I really don't want to use 2 of them. They did look okay, but it's just not me. And then I've decided that I do kind of want to give it a bit of a border, but with a Polaroid type frame around it, so a bit thin around the top 3 edges and then a wider border down the bottom. Okay, so just going to have a bit of a play here with the positioning of it. As you can see, it's a cocoa vanilla paper, and right now, even though I want to use the wood grain, it's breaking my heart because I love the floral print on the other side as well. But I do know that I've got another piece of this in my stash, so I'm telling myself it's okay to use it. Do you do that? Do you buy paper and you just love it so much you have to give yourself permission to use it? I do it all the time with beautiful paper. Yep, kind of working out where it's going and what's happening, and just playing with it, seeing how it all fits together. And as you can see, my process is I decide what I want and then work the elements to the paper and just trying to get a balance. When I'm designing my layouts, I really start with an idea of an element, which in this case is the cut files, and then I work the page around that. There's no real rhyme or reason. I just think, I think this would look good together, and just go for it. And usually after a bit of a play, I work out what it is I want to do and how it's going to work together. So as you just saw, I did find another piece of paper. It's got little umbrellas on it, so spring, rain, I kind of thought it was appropriate, and it's also got the same colours in that I have backed my cut files with. So I cut the centre out because I will use the centre of that on another layout, or I'll use it for backing cut files on. I've cut the wood grain down a little bit so I can see the edge of the umbrella, the pattern paper underneath, and I've also distressed the edges with the distressing tool, and now I'm just going through and ripping the edges a little bit more to give it a bit more of a distressed look, just to build it up and add texture to the page. So I'm just tearing it along, making sure to be careful not to tear it too far into the page so that it goes over that bottom pattern paper and the hollow from the piece I cut out. So just playing with some double-sided sticky tape to give it a bit of movement and rips across the edges. Right, so right now I've decided that my paper needs something else. I need to finish it off. It just didn't look quite finished. So when in doubt, I always go to mixed media. So I'm just using some water paint, adding quite a bit of water, and the plastic packaging technique, which is just putting the paint onto the plastic packaging and just putting it down and smearing your hand across and moving the paint around on your paper. So I am going with a few different colours here, just to give it a little bit of a different look. So I'm doing a pink and a purple. I'll add a blue as well. So as you can see, I'm just doing a few blotches on the packaging and then patting it down, making sure to wipe off the excess from the paper before I use the packaging again, and also making sure that my paint dries before I add another layer of paint. Otherwise you get the paint blending, and using red tones with the blues, you get a bit of purple, mix too much purple. So I wanted the colours to be very separate, so I did wait until they were dry. Now what I'm doing here is actually mixing some heavy white gesso with a bit of water to liquefy it, make it a little bit more runnier, and then I'm just doing splatters all over that the backing. So big splatters and little splatters, making sure it goes everywhere, and cleaning up as I go. And now you can see it's all nice and dry now. So just adding my die cuts back in, cut files back in, and having a bit of play. And I really like how it's starting to look and how it's turned out, and I'm quite happy with it. So I'm just going to go for it and stick it all down. And it does hang over the page a little bit, but I will trim it up so that it's square. Grabbing the double-sided three-dimensional tape, just to give a bit of height, as I explained before, to that other pot of flour, and just making it thin enough so that the tape goes on the leaves as well, and the stem. A little bit sticking out, so I did trim it down. And just tucking the sunflower behind the photo, and then the stem I'm going to overlap the photo. And I'm going to use the three-dimensional tape again and a bit of glue to give a bit of depth. So I want the bottom of the photos a little bit higher than the top, so I've secured the top right down and stuck the bottom out a little bit more, just to give it a few different layers. Right, a few embellishments now. So I've rifled through my stash, and I've actually pulled out these buttons, and I pulled them out a while ago because I put a kit together for counterfeit counterfeit blog challenges, and it's where you create a kit from your stash based on a representation of someone else's kit. So you make up a kit from your own stash basically. So I've actually pulled most of the elements in this layout from my my kit that I put together for the month of April. So there you go. And I'm just adding some of the embellishments, little butterfly, the buttons, a couple of words, trying to work out what I was going to call it. I end up going with garden vibes, and it's how I was feeling at the moment, because the house that we've moved into has this gorgeous garden, and it surprises me. Like, we've been in the house for a few months, and every day I go out into the garden, there's a new flower of some sort, and there's no rhyme or reason to what the previous owners planted. There's lilies, there's sunflowers, there's dancing lady orchids, there's grevilleas and gardenias, there's all sorts of things. It's just really making me happy to discover all these little flowers. I'm just, got good garden vibes. Yeah. And just using a bit of the white glue to stick it all down. And I'm really happy with how the layout turned out. It just makes me happy looking at it. Very, very happy. Sorry, I should use more descriptive words, but it's one of those layouts that makes me happy. Sorry, couldn't resist that one. So there you go. And coming up to the end of my layout now, I'm just going to journal to finish it off. And what I've said in the journaling is, for the first time in many years, we can actually have a garden that we don't have to pull out when we move. Love having our own home. And there we are, it's all finished. And I hope you enjoy this layout. I hope you enjoy the inspiration I've showed you. I'd love to get some feedback. So please drop me a line. Let me know if you like it or not. And thanks for sticking with me. And please visit the Confessions of a Paper Addict Etsy store. The releases for April are absolutely beautiful and divine. They are so they're so lovely and so well detailed that you won't have any issues being able to use them. So pop into the store. The link will just be up in about a second, and thank you. Goodbye.